Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. This is the only YouTube channel that allows you to connect with hot single MILFs in your area. Today, we're gonna be reviewing chapter 118 of Chainsaw Man and all of the uncomfortable that comes with that. The past 3 chapters in a row have stressed me out more than any other string of chapters in Chainsaw Man history. Usually, Fujimoto just likes to smack us over the head with some tragic shit out of nowhere, but for some reason, Fujimoto seems to keep building this ominous, dramatic irony that makes Chainsaw Man so scary to read weekly. I think it's safe to say we're all emotionally scarred from the ending of part 1. So today we're going to be talking about everything that scared the shit out of me in this chapter and more. But first, class is once again in session. I've linked a poll at the top of the description where you guys can vote on what grade you think this chapter of Chainsaw Man should get. A, B, C, D, or F. And at the beginning of the next chapter review video, we're going to go over the overall chapter GPA for this chapter, as well as some of your guys' comments down below on this video. Speaking of which, let's just quickly see what you guys thought about chapter 117. So almost 400 people voted in this poll. If that was one of you guys, thank you so much. And after crunching the numbers, we get an average chapter GPA of 3.92. Now, I'm not necessarily keeping track of how well each chapter does every week, but that is a very standout number. I'm pretty sure that might be the best performing chapter of all time so far. Maybe I'll look back through all the other ones I've done in the past and try to see if I can get the top 3 best performing chapters and maybe do a video about that at some point. But if this isn't number 1, it's at least number 2 or 3. It's top 3. Now, the next chapter poll is already live right here. It already almost has 100 votes. So remember to check that out after you finish watching this video. So enough with the chapter GPA, let's move on to the comments. Alrighty, my boy Avatar Desto says, I think Yoshida and Fami might end up having a similar dynamic to Kishibe and Makima since we were recycling old plot points from part 1. As for Denji, I really doubt he's gone this early in the story. I have a feeling it might not even work and be played off as a joke with him just thinking Asa's being weird again. I'm glad your spidey senses were on point, Avatar Desto, because as we've seen in this chapter already, that seems to be the case. But I really like your comment about Yoshida and Fami potentially being like Makima and Kishibe. I think that was one of the most interesting dynamics in part 1, almost being like a rivalry or almost being foils of each other. It would make a little bit of sense too because Kishibe had a similar mystery about him in part 1 that Yoshida has in part 2 right now. The next comment comes to us from Potpan. It's kind of weird that you didn't even mention the most likely reason for why the power didn't work on Denji, because he himself doesn't actually love her, at least not yet. Remember, according to Yoru herself, she can turn a boy into a weapon if they'd fallen for her, because then they'd be hers. But this isn't the situation here. Asa's the only one who fell in love, not Denji. He's definitely somewhat interested in her, but is he straight up in love? Probably not, no. Really, I think the twist here will be that Yoru just assumed that Denji must have fallen for her too just because Asa has. Femcel moment incoming, I guarantee it. Now, one thing I completely agree with in here, there is a Femcel moment incoming. We've already read it. That said, I'm not convinced Denji hasn't fallen for her. And I'm going to talk about that a little later in the review. But you bring up a really great point, Poppan. Thank you guys so much for your comments. Remember to leave a comment below on this video as well, and maybe we'll talk about it at the beginning of next chapter review video. And while you're down in the comments checking out that voting link, maybe leaving a comment, remember to leave a like on this video and subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot, and I love making this kind of content for you guys. And just a quick reminder for you guys, I've started live streaming right here on my YouTube channel every Monday night, Wednesday night, and Saturday afternoon. Last night we did a hilarious live stream where we talked to AI anime characters and even got into an argument with Goku over who would win in an oil-covered twerk-off. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. EST, we're going to be doing the exact same thing, talking to AI anime characters, so remember to stop by and even suggest some characters we can talk to. Alrighty, with that out of the way, let's talk about the chapter. So today's chapter ended up being a shorter one, just 15 pages long, but that was plenty of time for Fujimoto to put the fear of God into me. We started this week off exactly where we left off last week with our lovable doofus Yoru trying to turn Denji into a weapon. And we talked about all of the possible outcomes of this exchange last week, and thankfully, it just didn't end up working. But before any of that even happened, I don't want anyone here to look over the fact that the first panel of this chapter was a bunch of crows flying away. My spidey senses are telling me that anytime there's a scene with crows in this manga, especially at an important moment, it has something to do with Nayuta and her power to control lower life forms. Now, we're going to talk more about Nayuta later, trust me. I wouldn't have put her in the thumbnail like that if we weren't going to talk about her. But just so I have this out here now, I'm incredibly sketched out by her. Now back to Denji and Yoru. Denji is obviously confused as to what's happening right now, but, you know, Denji just writes it off as Asa being a weirdo again. Which is hilarious because it wasn't even her this time, but he thinks she's so weird that this isn't even out of the ordinary for her. But most importantly, this didn't work on Denji. Now, Asa just writes this off as Denji just doesn't like her like that. But knowing Denji, I'm pretty sure he'd at least have some kind of feelings for any girl that would so much as glance in his direction. The point that Potpan was making in my comments was that it probably is true that Denji doesn't like her like that yet. I'm not convinced. And I have a few explanations off the top of my head as to why this didn't work on Denji. It could just be that this technique doesn't work on hybrids, and this wouldn't even be the first time a devil's technique doesn't work on hybrids. In part 1 of the manga, every time the fox devil would try to eat a hybrid, it either spit them back out or couldn't swallow them. Then there's also the cursed devil's power being unable to completely kill a hybrid because they're immortal. The only time a devil's power seemingly works on a hybrid is Makima's control power. But the criteria seems to be that she needs to defeat them in battle to view them as lesser than herself. But if that's the case, don't you think Yoru's power would have worked on Denji, seeing as it seems to be a perception thing? Because from Yoru and Asa's point of view, Denji seems to have fallen for them. Well, this might actually be where the answer lies. The reason Yoru couldn't turn Denji into a weapon could be that not only is Denji Asa's, but Asa is also Denji's. It might not work if she's super into him, too. I actually saw this theory in the comments of one of my videos or a live stream. I'm so sorry I forgot who said that. If it was one of you guys, please let me know in the comments. But to me, this seems like more of an applicable reason as to why the power didn't work. Why would Denji have asked Asa on a second date if he didn't like her? But I'm glad this misunderstanding exists, because now Asa's pissed at Denji because she thinks he doesn't like her. I don't know why, but I just love the scenes when they're arguing or she's mad at him because they just seem like such man babies.
One of the biggest babies of all time.
Or I guess woman babies, femcells, I don't know. But before Asa has time to agonize over Denji seemingly not having fallen in love with her, Asa asks Yoru about the famine devil. And before we can get any information about who she is, Yoru falls asleep. I'm pretty sure Fujimoto wants us begging and pleading on our knees before he'll have any character confirm the horsemen of the apocalypse theory in his manga. We're getting so close now, we just need someone to say it. So now Asa's lying in bed thinking, how the fuck can someone not like me? I mean, I'm me. Her thing seems to be to get defensive and double down that it's everyone else's fault that they don't like her. So the next scene comes around and Denji comes to Asa with his super awesome date plan, which is the same exact date Makima took him on in part 1. They're doing a movie marathon at the cinema. But Asa says absolutely not because she's a broke ass hoe who can't afford 20 bucks. So they agree to do a movie rental date at Denji's house, and this is the scary part, only if Asa follows the house rules to a T. And if she doesn't, it's death. Now, this is where everyone's kind of freaking out, myself included, because we're all assuming that Denji's living situation might not be as safe as we thought it was at the end of part 1. That maybe Nayuta isn't so different from Makima than we once believed. And if this is the case, maybe it really was Denji that killed Yuko under Nayuta's control. It's so hard to try to think about what's gonna happen next because Fujimoto leaves everything so intentionally vague to the point that we don't really know what's going on until after it's already happened. Which, that in of itself is brilliant writing, but it's super stressful. With all the panels of crows flying around at certain moments, her absence from part 2 of the manga so far, and Denji's cryptic way of referring to her, Nayuta's becoming more of a scary character than the precious cinnamon roll we once thought she was. And this is where you guys tend to excel. I want to hear any and all Nayuta theories you have in the comments below. Now there was one more important panel at the end of this chapter where Haruka Isayumi overheard the conversation between Denji and Asa, but I just fucking hate this guy so much that it would literally kill me to waste any more of my shot voice on him. So that's about all for today's chapter review. We're on break next week because there's no chapter, but I'm going to be visiting my family anyway. In the meantime, feel free to check out my live streams right here on my YouTube channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Also, I'm going to be releasing some fire videos for you guys in the meantime. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Wow, 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 wow.